was from Bonner Springs, but now I'm from Lakeview Village.
If I would live my life again, there's three choices I would not change. One, I still marry the same gal. Two, I still join the Army. And three, I still come to Lakeview.
Most of the residents are in independent living, and so they're really a physically active community.
We had been looking here for several years. A tornado hit Linwood, Kansas in 2018, and we had trees down and debris and whatever, and my husband came in the house. He says, put the house on the market, we're moving to Lakeview.
I don't have a big support system except for my financial advisor. And she said, Penny, I don't care where you go. I just want you to go to a life care program.
I like that it's a place where we can stay and be cared for. It's like a small town, really. We have a doctor, we have a bookstore, we have a bank, we have restaurants.
I like the whole campus. I like the walking areas that we have and the security that's here on Lakeview.
And those that are gardeners, my next door neighbor says, we don't do it because we have to, we do it because we want to. So we all have little gardens.
And people are extremely friendly.
The people are so awesome, and the different backgrounds that they have are really, really interesting.
They have art, music, writing, poetry, and prose, card-playing clubs, exercise groups, there's a swimming pool.
I mean, there are people that go from one class to another class to another class because there's so much going on there.
Lakeview launders are linen, no bedsheet, bedspread, towels to wash. The guys are out plowing the road first thing in the morning. You don't have to shovel the driveway, you don't have to do this, don't have to do that.
I was shown an apartment on the 5th floor facing the lake that's behind me. That was the end of the decision in that respect.
The tower had my living, and it had my studio, it had the restaurant, it had the workout space.
It has 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, living room, dining room, full kitchen, pantry, a study, 2-car garage. That would be perfect.
When I came, I was 75. I thought, I don't know. I'm too young. And I was comfortable like the first month.
I've been at Lakeview Village 5 years. We came to Lakeview Village when we were 70.
I thought it was a little early for us to come here. But after about 6 months, I realized, no, you need to come to Lakeview as quick as you can because there's so much stuff to do here. There's more things to do here than you got time to do it.
There are volunteer opportunities for everyone, and that it is like a village. It truly is like a village.
I always, when I walk around, it's like it has that small town feel to it, like my hometown where I was born. And I love that feeling.
Hello to all of you, and thank you so much for being part of this special presentation by Lakeview Village. It's about downsizing. Downsize to simplify your life. And we've got a great presenter with us today who is going to help us get our act together, because I don't know about you, but every time I go to the garage or I go to the basement, I'm like, how in the world am I ever going to get rid of all this stuff? So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to help us bring it down a notch to know that this is manageable, it is achievable with the right plan and the right time. So I can't wait for you to meet her, because we're going to get this done together. But before we do, I want to remind you of how to ask a question today. So right below this box that I'm sitting in, there is a form. You're going to go there, type in your name, your question, hit submit. That'll come to us. We'll get your questions answered. And if we don't get them all answered today, because we tend to get a lot of them for this presentation in particular, Lakeview Village will reach out to you and they will get your questions answered as well. So before we get to our presenter, Karen, Lynn Tenbrink, how are you? Lynn is the marketing director at Lakeview Village. You've been there a little over a year now, and it's really fun to kind of hear what's going on at Lakeview Village. And I know that I think you've got like the parade of homes coming up, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Yes.
But what else is going on?
Well, we are finishing construction on our new villas. We had built 7 new villas, which were all pre-sold. And so we've had 2 people move in, and we're finishing up the other 5 on construction. We have 1 closing in about 2 weeks. So we're really excited to get those folks moved in and get on to the new construction project.
Awesome. And we're going to share a little bit more about kind of what's going on at Lakeview
Yes.
Village as well. I think it's important for folks to know that you've been in this industry for 20 years. You've been doing, I mentioned you were only there a little short period of time, but you've been there in this industry for a long, long time. And so you know your stuff. And
Yes.
I think it's important for folks right now for us to take a quick little moment to just learn a little bit more about Lakeview Village before we get into today's presentation.
So Lakeview Village is a 100-acre campus. We have villas, patio homes, duplexes, apartments. We are a nonprofit organization, which is really important to a lot of people. So the money that goes to Lakeview Village always goes back to the residents and their lifestyle. The most amazing part of Lakeview Village is the lifestyle. So it's, of course, maintenance-free living. We have tons of amenities, a state-of-the-art fitness center, a pool, social activities, a supermarket, library, a bank on site, an art studio. We have an amazing art studio. So the lifestyle is really, what makes Lakeview different. Maintenance-free living is, of course, the main reason why people move to Lakeview. It's Lakeview Village, so we have 2 lakes. We have miles of walking trails, so we're great for biking, walking your dog. We also have something special called Lakeview Village University, and our residents are our instructors and our students. So any type of talent or education that you have to share with other people, you could teach a course at Lakeview Village and other residents will participate. It's very popular. We have a spring and summer course, and it's very, very popular. We are guided by a local board of directors, and I think that's important that all decisions about Lakeview Village are made locally. All of our board of directors live in Kansas City, and I feel that they know our community and they know our residents. We're very financially sound. That's important when you're looking at a CCRC. You need an organization that's going to be there in 20 and 30 years. You're paying for some future care, so you want to make sure that they're there. So an organization that's very financially sound is important. So as you're looking, ask about the finances of organizations that you're looking into. Something that comes up a little bit with our tours, people looking, is even though we have other living options besides apartments, we have the villas, we have duplexes, we have patio homes, but we do have a lot of apartments. And some people coming from a home to an apartment, that's a big adjustment. And we do like to share that our buildings are steel and concrete construction, and that is much more quiet and sound than other types. I mean, this isn't the apartment that your kids are living at in college. They're very quiet. You don't hear people walking around. You don't hear people's television. So I want people to feel a little bit better about that if they're looking into apartment living. If you would ever need it in the future, we do have state-of-the-art inpatient and outpatient therapy and rehab. That's there on campus if you would ever need it, and long-term care. And so when you meet with us, we'll talk about how all of that comes together. Our residents don't need that when they move in, but if they need it in the future, we're there. We are also the only true life care in Johnson County. There are other organizations that have a version of life care, but we're the only true life care where your monthly fee follows you through other levels of care. And that takes a longer conversation, but something to think about and talk about as you're looking at communities.
So Lynn, I'm sure that as people go through the presentation today, other questions are going to come up, certainly. So we want you to hang around here till the end. But here is your contact information as well on the screen. So for those who might want to jot that down right now, it's L10 Brink. We need to find out about your last name one of these days. But anyway, and then there is the phone number as well for folks to have, because there is so much going on. And that life care piece, I think, can be a little bit tricky for people.
Yes.
We hear it from other communities. It is different. It is above, if you will, at Lakeview Village, and that is an important conversation and a longer one, as you said. So I'm glad that you brought that up, certainly, so folks can continue to learn more about that. And we've got some other sessions coming up, some other virtual events coming up where we're going to talk in depth about that as well, but they can call you.
And that's why we do these, is we're trying to inform and educate. We want educated consumers. So even if Lakeview isn't the right place for you, we just want you to make an educated decision about it. So find out about other communities, as we encourage you to find out about other communities, because you'll vividly see how Lakeview is different.
Yeah.
But we'll help you with all that education to make the decision that's right for you.
I love that about you guys. You're very open about, we just want to help.
Right.
If this isn't the right fit, it's not the right fit, but we just want to help. So that is awesome. All right, well, we are going to talk to Karen Swart now, and I have a special place in my heart for organizing, etc. You guys have been doing this in Kansas City for many years, and downsizing is probably one of your greatest specialties in terms of being able to really come into our home, help us look at what we've got everywhere and go, you're really using that, Melissa, or not? So I think what you're going to share with us today is a really meaty presentation and great information for us. Plus, there is a resource guide, so for those folks who reach out, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later, to us at Lakeview Village, then they'll be able to get that resource guide. So know that if you're one of those to take copious notes about everything, you can get a resource guide that's going to have all of this information in it as well. So Karen, take it away.
All right, thank you, Melissa. So here is our main question of the day. How to fit a lifetime of things into a smaller space. And I think these pictures provide a pretty good visual. The first picture might look like your basement. And you know what? You're very organized if that is you. But the point of this is just for you to see and think about, if I have a lot of things that I've been collecting over the years, and I'm considering downsizing to a smaller home, or maybe a community like Lakeview Village, you possibly will have less storage space, or you just will need less stuff where you're moving to. So this is how we're going to think about our presentation today. How do we downsize to a smaller space? So a project like this might make you feel a lot of different ways. I hope you're feeling excited. Because this is a new chapter in your life. You're going to be able to do new things and different things because you're going to unload all of this extra stuff that you no longer need or use. And you're going to be able to focus on other aspects of your life. You might be a little overwhelmed or sad or worried, and these are all very normal things to feel right now. Just be aware of how you feel right now, and know that there are people out there that can help you get through this process. All right, so how can a professional help? So as mentioned, I'm a professional organizer. This is something that I help people navigate through. Whether you're here in Kansas City or in another city, there are professional people. It's a service where we can help you get through the process and think through it from beginning to end. We know you're overwhelmed. We've been through many projects just like this, so we are conscientious about that feeling. What we're here to do is guide you and to ask the right questions and to be sensitive about the process as a whole. We know what the goal is, we know the end goal, and we're just going to help you get there. And mostly we're going to encourage and direct.
I love that you mentioned that, Karen, because I do think that sometimes people don't understand. They just think you're going to come in and go, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, rather than you have this real system and process of working with individuals to help us determine what we do with all of those things. And being that guide, because it can be really emotional. You open up a box and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get rid of all that. So I that's why I pause for a minute, because I just really want folks to know this is not just a whoosh, 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 whoosh.
Absolutely.
This is a thoughtful process.
Absolutely. I have people ask me a lot of times, how do you get people to get rid of things? And my answer is, I don't get people to do anything. It's just they decide, but I'm just there to kind of help them think through it.
And ask questions. So it's really a great process.
Absolutely. Okay, why is letting go hard? Well, that is a good question. There's a lot of reasons it might be difficult to let go of things, and here are a few, and these are the ones that I think I see most often. There are memories attached to things. You might pick up an item, and this happens with me and clients a lot. They'll pick it up and they'll tell me the whole story about what happened with that one item. So those memories are real. I would say that there are options with these mementos, like maybe taking a picture of the item and then donating the item. You still have, the memories are always there. So a lot of times people are afraid that they might need the item moving forward. Although that might be true, it might be easy to go pick up that item at your local store if you really needed it. Sometimes people feel guilty because the item was a gift. Oh, my aunt gave me whatever the item might be. And so you feel bad about getting rid of that. I usually try to encourage people just to understand whether that item has outlasted its usefulness. Are you even displaying the item anymore? And it's probable that your loved ones are not going to feel bad if you had to get rid of it because you are downsizing. I spent a lot of money on an item. I hear this a lot. And the thing you have to remember about purchasing items, when you decide to buy something, no matter what the cost is, you made that decision in that moment, and it is a sunk cost. So I have a good personal example of this. When I was working professionally a long time ago, I was in sales, and I bought, it was in the 90s, it was a coat dress. Do you remember those? Oh, yeah. And it was red, and I spent, at the time, what I thought was an enormous amount of money on that dress. And I wore it and I loved it, and then eventually I got out of the workforce. I stayed home and raised my kids for a while. But that red coat dress hung in my closet for years. There it is. I just spent so much money on it. Eventually I got rid of the coat dress. I was not ever going to wear the 90s coat dress again, but it took me a while to get to that point. So just know, no matter how much money you spend on an item, that money is gone. And if it is still not useful to you, the fact that you spent a lot is irrelevant probably at this point.
And it gave you pleasure in the moment that you spent the money on it.
Absolutely.
So, it's not lost money. It's just that it was a decision right then. It was very much appreciated, and time has passed.
Absolutely, yes.
And I don't usually interject on Karen's presentation, but just because we're on the point, a lot of times I think of that as somebody else can enjoy it now too. If you got a lot of pleasure out of it, it's a valuable item. I always say it's time for it to go to a new home where somebody else can really enjoy it. It won't be in the basement. It won't be in the drawer.
Such a great point.
It won't be in the closet.
Such a great point.
Definitely, definitely. And this last one is really the thing that trips people up, I think, the most. They just don't know where to begin. So when you're thinking about your project, I want you to think about what your resources are. So I've listed what I think your main resources are going to be. You have time. Hopefully you have time. And a lot of times people say, well, how much time do I need? You know, it depends on how much stuff you have, or you know, what your, if you have a goal for moving or whatever. But I would say 6 months to a year is a good amount of time. And it depends on how diligent you are. But give yourself at least 6 months to really get your arms around this and get these things to the places that they're going. Money, of course, is a resource. So think about what your budget is. I'm going to talk a lot about free resources, which are wonderful. So we want to use as many free resources as possible before you tap into your budget. You have family and friends. It's kind of like asking your friends to help you move, you know, they all scatter, right? But for something like this, you will have family and friends that are willing to help. So ask them to help. Your city and your county services, which we'll touch base on a little bit later, but there are a lot of wonderful services that are available to us here in Kansas City in particular. And we do have a resource list that you can request later from Lakeview Village that has all of that printed out for you. The retirement communities, if that's where you're going, have marketing departments such as Lynn, and I've worked closely with Lynn's department, and they are wonderful. They work closely with their residents and potential residents with a lot of these kind of questions like, well, who do I call for this, or who can help me with that? And so they're a good resource for you as well. Professional organizers such as myself are a good resource, and many other professionals like your movers and real estate agents, estate sale companies, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a little bit too. All right, so about giving yourself enough time, I mentioned that you need probably at least 6 months. I want you to also realize that, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, so you're not going to do this in a day or a week even, unless you have very diligent helpers. But try not to do it all at once. If you're looking at this project, I encourage you to start small, like maybe you're going to work on a dresser in the guest room today, and that would be it. So just one small area at a time, and then move on from there.
Karen, we have a question here in relation to this time element. So you're saying it's a 6 to 12 month period. Is that if they do it by themselves or with family, or is that if you and your team would come in? Is it still the same amount of time?
No, if they had someone like me and my team come in, we could do it a lot quicker. And so I would say if you have someone like us, it'd be more like a couple of months. We could probably get through it. Again, it depends on volume. It also depends on how specific the homeowner is about where their things go. Are they selling items? Things like that. That's going to take more time.
Okay.
So, yeah, good question though.
Yeah. Her name was Karen.
Oh, good name. All right. So when you're looking at your things, I want you to categorize and prioritize. All right. And so my list here, in my opinion, is in order of priority. All right. So we are thinking about what are we keeping? What are we giving away? What are we selling, donating, and what is just trash? All right. All right, so let's talk about each of those. So for the items that you're keeping, this is where your organizer will ask you some really good questions, such as, do you use this? Do you use it regularly? If the answer is yes, then that's a good item to keep. All right, so regular use, are you going to be able to store it? All right, so there are probably some larger items you have in your home now that it could get tricky with storage, so you have to really think through that. Does it have a strong sentimental value? We're going to talk about sentimental items a little bit more in detail. And does it fit your lifestyle? So I have a good example for this particular question. If you are someone, I had a client that was an advertising executive back in the day, and she had many, many, many custom suits. It's similar to my coat dress. Custom suits from the 80s. They were really cool. But she is retired now. Her lifestyle has changed completely. And although she used those items regularly, she just was not going to have the space for them where she was going. So we donated them, and I'm sure they made somebody very happy.
I bet they did. Help them get a job.
That's right. That's right. All right, so sentimental items. This is a tough area, as we have talked many times. Pictures are tricky because people tend to have a lot of them. They might have them in albums. I really encourage people to consider getting them digitalized. There are a lot of services out there that will do that. I did this personally. I took all my kids' photos and took them to a service and had the photos digitalized so that they were stored forever and safe. They're safe from disaster and flood and whatever might happen. And they're preserved for the future. So something to consider, and then you don't have to worry about physically storing these photos long term.
Is that one of the things that folks will find on the resource guide, is something like that? Or is that just something they should Google? It's on the resource guide, perfect. Because that's where you want to, I want it to be like easy for me. Thank you, Karen and Lynn.
And it is easy. It is easy. I used a local service, but I've had clients use a mail-in service, which sounds scary because you're mailing in your photos, but they send them back, so it's all good. Wherever you're going, you want to think about selecting a few smaller items to keep, and I encourage you to think about maybe a banker's box or just a lidded container and keeping the items to that amount of keepsakes to take with you. You can gift the items for safekeeping. So in other words, if you have some sentimental items, offer for your kids to take them, or somebody that you care about to just keep them for you, and to maybe keep them long term as well. You can donate to a museum or sell to an antique store. I will say that this is kind of a remote possibility. But sometimes there are museums that are looking for particular items that you can gift to. And then lastly, take pictures of the items instead. Just take pictures of them, and then you will always have that item preserved in that way, but in a smaller way. All right, so when you're gifting items to your loved ones, you want to select the items that you think that person might want, or maybe you want them to have that item. Be sure to ask them if they would like the item. And this is a little tricky because they're either going to be honest or not. But if they are honest and say they do not want the item, just respect that, because I have a lot of clients that have been on the receiving end, and then they are left with the burden of trying to figure out what to do with things. So if they're telling you from the beginning that they really do not want the things, then you need to find another resource. And I would say something to consider is that if they are going to take items, give them a date to pick up the item, because inevitably it never gets out of your house, and then you're still left with that scenario where you have to find a home for it. So if you can give them a deadline, say, I really need you to pick it up by a certain day, that's very helpful.
And here's your sign. If they miss the deadline, and they miss the deadline, because that is a real thing that I think even, when my folks passed away, I have, and I just discovered it this past weekend, I have 4 boxes of silver. What am I supposed to do with that? But it's one of those where mom was like, oh, this was your grandmother's. And the girls, my girls are going to want one. My girls are like, nah, I don't. Well, they're too young to make that decision. So, and I get it maybe somebody will grow up and decide they really want that, but as Lynn said, it'll be Lynn's line of the day. Somebody else will enjoy that item. It's
Share the
time to let it go. So yeah, there's just it's a lot when the young adult of this parent is taking in all of these things too. So,
all right, some items you might want to sell. Realize that there are a lot of ways you can sell your items. There's a lot of platforms like Facebook Marketplace that are available. If you do not know how to sell items this way, try to have a family member help you if you're not good with digitalized applications. If you do have people come to the home to purchase things from you, safety is a really important thing to consider. Make sure that you are safe if somebody's coming to pick up an item with having a family member with you. And I always encourage for you to have the transfer done in the garage or in the driveway. So that's just a little side note on that. You can consider an estate sale or a garage sale. Just two things on this. If you are thinking about an estate sale, just know that a good estate sale company is going to charge anywhere from 35 to 50%. That is going to be their fee of the total sale. And to be honest, that is a fair amount to charge because a lot of work goes into estate sales. So ultimately, I encourage people to have an estate sale company come out and just quote them. A lot of times they will let them know they do not have enough stuff to make that work out for both of you. So I encourage you to go ahead and get a quote. Garage sales, you know, those are a lot of work too. And so you certainly can do a garage sale. I would say in the end, they're usually not worth the effort, but that's for you to determine too. Valuable items should be appraised, like jewelry and art. And there again, if you've got something really specific that you think is worth a lot, I would just seek out those professionals who can do that for you. And here's the line of the day. In general, your things will be more valuable to you than they are to anyone else. And that's different kinds of value. Sentimental value, you have the memories. So just remember that when you're physically selling it, it may not bring as much money as you would like for it to do for that reason. So. All right, here's some examples of some sellable items, and this is a current list. So this can change over time. For instance, I have a 26-year-old and she thinks vintage Pyrex is the coolest thing ever, and she's got a lot of it. So right now that's very hot, and if you have some, you could probably sell it. But the list, military items, jadeite dishes, antique toys and games, antique signage, albums, and I mean albums like, you know, records, the Beatles. Not all of them are worth something, but many, so that's something to look into, and comic books and action figures. All right, so here are some pictures of what could be sellable items. There's books, there's Hallmark ornaments. This last picture here, these are antique hood ornaments. And these are all true pictures of items that came from clients of mine. You know, books are not worth a lot typically unless they're antique. Those are very hot, but you can sell your books for a few pennies. And if you've got a lot of them, well, you might end up with a few dollars. Hallmark ornaments, I have had several clients that have had a lot of those. There are buyers for this, but the reality on something like that is they're only looking for certain ones. And so if you think that you're going to sell your entire allotment for a lot of money, chances are probably not. And hood ornaments, who knew? My client sold these for quite a bit of money. So the point is that you have to do your research and ask the right people whether they're worth anything. There are things that are difficult to sell, and some of this may or may not surprise you, but all your china, no matter how old it is, or stemware, collectible figurines, these things are not really sellable because the younger generations are not interested in them. They're also not interested in what I call brown furniture, like the picture there. No matter how well made, no matter how solid it is. And the reason is because the younger generations they're very mobile. They don't want to have to move it. They're more interested in experiences than things. And so they're just not ready or willing to invest in something like that. No, your Beanie Babies are not worth anything. That's a hard one. A lot of people have those thinking that they were going to be, but they're not. And upright pianos, and they're hard to get rid of too, the pianos. So, okay, how to let it go. Donate. And these are some of the questions that I would ask my clients. Have you used it currently? Have you used it in the last year? Will you have room for it? Is it sentimental? Or can someone keep it for you if it is? And as Lynn pointed out earlier, can someone else find use or joy from it? And that's really important. Let's pass it forward, honestly. All right, so here's a list of charity donation centers here in the Kansas City area. I've used all of these in one regard or another. We've put a little red asterisk beside the ones that actually do pickup still, which is really amazing when you're doing a big purge, if you will. And I've also listed what their charity is, like Big Brothers Big Sisters, or Christian Outreach. So you're doing a lot of good for these organizations when you donate your things to them. All right, something to consider when you donate, and sometimes people are surprised by some of the things on my list, but not everything is donatable for various reasons. Baby equipment is difficult to get rid of because of liability, but there is a resource here in town, Amethyst Place, that will take some of them if they need it. Similar to the heavy brown furniture I just talked about, TV armoires you cannot donate them because the charities cannot sell them because we don't use TVs that way anymore. We hang them on the wall or we sit them on a table. So they're difficult. And I have had just to have a junk person come get them because they're just, I know, it's kind of sad. Mattresses are difficult to get rid of. So you can look through this list, but just know that especially if you're going to have a donation pickup, they will not take all of this stuff if you put it out, just because you put it out. So know what they're willing to take. All right, we'll talk a little bit about paper. Paper's so boring. We hate it, and everybody has it. Sometimes mounds and mounds of it. So just a few rules of thumb. There is not a lot of paper you need to keep. I mean, that's the general rule of thumb. I try to get people to understand. This is a list, and you can go, I got this list from SusieOrman.com. She's a financial advisor. She's a famous one, and she gave this list. And if you follow this guideline, I would say most of the paper you probably have can be recycled or shredded. What do you need to shred? I would say anything with a signature, an account number, a social security number, medical or legal information. And the main concern here is identity theft. So just keep that in mind. Those are the things that you'll want to shred.
We have a little something about shredding coming up a little bit later. We're going to fill folks in on something Lakeview Village is doing.
Yes. So free services that are available in our area here in Kansas City, of course, the donation centers that I've already talked about, Many of your local cities have, like Prairie Village and Leawood, they might have annual city events where they have large trash pickups. So just check out your city's websites. I'm sure that they will have those listed there. Many cities have drop-off centers for plastic, cardboard, recycling, electronic recycling. Goodwill and Staples. Goodwill will take like computers and printers and they recycle them right away. Staples will take smaller items like cell phones, and they have deposit receptacles in their store. So hazardous waste recycling, paints, chemicals, light bulbs, batteries. I know in Johnson County you can make an appointment to drop those off. There are some other cities around that do the same thing. That all of those particular cities are on our resource list that you can request. And I love including this because I think it's so important. One of the recycle centers in Overland Park, it's on Hardy Street, you can get free moving boxes. It's amazing. So make sure you check that out. All right, and I'm just going to finish with this last statement. Downsizing your home will take time. Give yourself grace and definitely extra time. Know that there are people and services to help you. Seek them out and ask questions. Try to approach this project as an adventure. It is a new and exciting chapter in your life, and I wish you all the best.
Wow, what great information that we have. A lot to digest. Again, there is a resource guide that you've put together. And Lynn, how will those attending be able to receive the resource guide that has a lot of this information in it?
You can give us a call or email us and we will send that to you if you request it. Also, somebody will be following up with all the attendees today to see if they would like that resource guide, and it is very helpful.
Perfect.
So everything you saw here, the donation centers, where they're located, so the addresses, the websites are all in the resource guide.
Perfect. So easy to do. Okay, so let's get to some of the questions. Some of them are things that you probably answered, but folks just want a little bit of clarity on. And so this is a question that comes from Bill, and Bill wants to know about estate sales. So these estate sales, you said 35 to 50% of funds that they take. Can you kind of give us an example of, I don't know, a 3,000 square foot home, 40 years worth of stuff in it? Can you give us some, is it worth it really to do this, Karen, or not? And I think that is where Bill is trying to get to with this question.
No, good question. In my experience, and I've visited with several estate sale companies, and I get kind of the same advice. It really depends on what they have. Some homes may not have a large volume of things, but they might have the right things. So for instance, if they have guns, those are a big seller. If they're selling cars or equipment in their garage, maybe they live out in the country and they have a big building with some farm equipment. I don't know. So larger pieces of equipment, things that bring more money are going to make it worthwhile. So that's why I really encourage, if you're not sure, have the estate sale company come out and take a look, and they'll be honest with you. One company says, well, my fee is $3,500. And what he's saying is, no matter what this sale brings, I'm getting $3,500, right?
Wow, okay,
yes.
That's important, yeah.
Yes, so, but it could be a great sale and he might ultimately make more than that. So it kind of depends on what you have to sell.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And it takes some self-assessment. Also, again, going back to the brown furniture, no thank you thing, that whether or not you really have those things. And then when they come to do that consultation, do they charge for that typically?
Usually no.
Okay.
They'll just do a walkthrough, and they've done it so many times. I mean, they're scanning. They're looking for those things that they know will be more valuable.
Gotcha.
I have a garage sale tip for you. Karen mentioned garage sales can be a lot of work, so my tip is don't price anything. It's what takes the most time. It can be very labor intensive while you put 25-cent stickers on everything. So price nothing. Just put it all out and people will make you an offer, or when they ask what you want for it, tell them verbally what you'd like. But it just saves so much time and can make it fun.
And gets it out of the yard or off the driveway or whatever, for sure.
Yes.
So your ultimate goal is the same. It's so great.
You don't have to price anything for
That's
garage
such a great idea. I love that idea. Margaret has a question in regards to finding a buyer for collectibles and antiques. So what would you suggest, Karen, is the way to do that? So if you really kind of feel like you do have something that's a collectible or an antique, where do you start to figure it out?
Well, I would say the internet is your friend because, and this is honestly how I found a lot of the resources I use with my clients. So right off the top of my head, if I have a client here in Kansas City that has furniture, maybe antique furniture or a lot of furniture, I know an auction guy that would tell me, oh yeah, I can sell that for you, or that's worth X, or he'll even come out and do an assessment and tell you kind of what it's worth. So you need to seek out the proper quote experts. I also have a resource. He's an online auction guy that has done so many of these kind of sales where he'll sell certain items. I call him all the time and just say, I have X. I have this certain kind of china or whatever. Is it worth anything? And he can almost tell me instantly.
Wow.
So seek out those kind of professionals that do this all the time. And as you saw on my one slide, that kind of changes over time. But yeah, ask the people who know. And I would just start on the internet and say, antique furniture sales, Kansas City, and see what kind of resources come up.
Okay, let's get real. Because the real thing, the easiest thing to do is when you hire organizing, etc. Yeah, I'm doing a commercial. I mean, it's true because you guys know all of those resources, and you've got a relationship with them, and you can just figure it out really quickly. Fast, done.
Totally. And I have a junk guy too, and he's a local guy, and so I text him. I say, I need you to come pick up some junk on Tuesday, and he says, I'll be there.
Wow.
Yeah, you're right. We do have resources. I have made it my job to have the resources.
That's your next ad. I've got a junk guy. Right there. Right. Okay, part 2 to Margaret's question is around consignment. So she's wanting to know, is that a route that's even worth taking?
Sometimes, yes. And these, in fact, that same resource I was telling you about with the furniture, sometimes they will sell on consignment as well. So sometimes, yes.
All right, so we talked already, Linda's got her question, it continues to be around time because I think everybody still wants to get their head wrapped around, if I'm looking at Lakeview Village or another community, when do I start this process? And so maybe, Lynn, you can share a little bit too. What has typically been sort of the way things work when somebody says, okay, now I'm ready to move? So help us with that timeline a little bit. And this is from Linda.
Well, I think one important thing is don't wait until you say you're ready to move. If you think you're going to move, you should be thinking about downsizing. So you know there's things, if you're in a 5-bedroom home, you know you're not moving to a 5-bedroom home. Is it time to find a place for some of those bedroom sets? Or if you've got 2 offices, but you really only need 1, just start whittling away at that. So I would just say for the most part, you can't start too soon. And if you're going to do it alone, it really is going to take you 6 to 12 months. When you think about every closet, every drawer, so timing-wise on that too, a big tip, Karen said a lot of things. Give yourself time. Rome wasn't built in a day. And part of this is don't just keep moving things around. We've talked about this too. They've got their donation pile as their entire basement. Schedule a once a month pickup with some of these folks and just have it ready to go. Because when you start seeing the progress, it's like you can just start breathing too. It doesn't feel so overwhelming. When you see your basement, doesn't have as much stuff, and your spare bedrooms don't have as much stuff. So, go at once every other week to the donation center. Don't feel like everything's all at one time. Give your kids I have a box of stuff for you to look through. This is yours. Keep it or throw it away. But you know that it's out of your house. We said too, and when we were talking about getting this event together, I talked about everybody's got those huge trash cans that they're wheeling to the end of their driveway, a recycle and a trash can. And if those are not overflowing every week, you are not downsizing. So those need to be filled to the brim every week. When it's not full, get in the house and, you've got shoe boxes or something that can go in there.
Well, you're right. I mean, and if you do it a little bit at a time, eat the elephant just one bite at a time, then it doesn't feel so difficult when it comes right down to it.
But when you start to see the progress, it kind of just it does. It feels really good, and it motivates you to do more.
Okay, so Carolyn's question is around, which we really kind of already covered, was which organizations will pick up donations from your home. That will be in the guide, right, that folks will get from Lynn. So Carolyn, sorry, I'm gonna skip that one. And then Ken asked, what can be donated versus thrown away, which we also talked about quite a bit in this. But I do think that there is something to be said, though, about what we donate isn't necessarily something that the folks receiving those items, they might end up throwing it away anyway. So saving them a step, because I think lovely suits or that great red dress, you can see that somebody might want that, but my husband's radio old t-shirts, no, I don't think so. So I think there is some simplicity of things isn't that, would you say, am I saying that correctly, Karen?
Yeah, definitely. You're talking about in terms of like offering it to...
Yeah, so donating versus throwing it away is what Kenneth is asking.
It's interesting because, and I have one particular thrift store not far from my house. I mean, I go to the back of the building and I back up my car. And we are on a first name basis back there. But I have seen, and there's a point to this, like with the ratty t-shirts, you think, should I donate them? But they get a lot of that kind of stuff, and they actually take them and they pack them up really tight in these cubes and they ship them up. I don't know where they're going, but I think they're going to be shredded and turned into stuffing so it's interesting, even stuff that the thrift stores don't want to sell or can't sell, they find a way to recycle it too. So if you're not sure, go ahead and donate.
And that feels better because it feels more environmentally appropriate too than just throwing it in a dumpster. Yes. I mean, or in what am I trying to say? A dump.
Yeah, the dump.
The dump. The dump. The dump. Right, exactly. That's what I was trying to say.
I think the thing to think about too is through the whole process, if you think about how much you've donated, how much you've given away, how much you've recycled. I mean, did you give somebody something of value that they're going to enjoy? So they got joy and they didn't have to pay for it. You're donating to organizations that the money is going back to the organization and then recycling. So if you focus on those things and not just what you're throwing away, you're going to throw a lot away. And your throwaway pile is going to be as big as the other piles. But if you focus on the good things, that you had 3 piles that were donated, recycled, or given away, just your 1 pile was thrown away.
Right, no, that's true. No, and if you don't believe us about keep donating things, even those dresses that maybe you have from the 60s or 70s or 80s or whatever, I mean, if you've gone to Savers, those young people are like, this is an amazing, they find things in there that they love, and they kind of mix and match differently than we did back then. But anyway, it's just fun. My daughters love to go in there, and people are having joy looking through all of those things.
The 80s stuff is all vintage cool now.
It is all vintage cool now, for sure. Okay, Virginia is asking us about the museum piece that we talked a little bit about earlier. How do you go about doing that?
That's tricky. I would say that, of course, it depends on the item. And I have a good example. I helped it was a Lakeview Village client, by the way, with her downsizing project. She had her mother's 1930-something Hoover vacuum cleaner. And she was just really concerned about that going somewhere. Of course, it doesn't work anymore. But there's a Hoover museum, and they wanted it.
Awesome.
Yes, no, who knew? So you have to do some research. I think there's some things that might seem obvious, like militia kind of items maybe would make sense going to a museum. But yeah, I would say if you have a museum in mind or you're wondering, just ask them. And if they want it, they'll let you know.
Awesome. We are getting close to our time, you guys, so just so that you all are aware of that. And we still have questions that are coming in, but again, Lynn, you'll get those questions and reach out to those folks and connect them with Karen if need be or whatever to get those questions answered, right? So I think right now we need to transition into talking a tiny bit about some of the upcoming events that are happening at Lakeview Village. Shred It. Let's talk about that one first because it's so perfect for this. So tell us how that's going to work and who all can actually participate in that, Lynn.
So everybody who is attending the event today will be invited to our free Shred It event. Awesome. And that's going to be May 10th, and it's going to be at Lakeview Village. It will be 12 to 1 o'clock, and you'll just drive up and we'll have a Shred It truck on site. And your items will be shredded there. They don't take it to another site to shred, so there's that safety part of transportation. You don't even have to get out of your car. You drive up, our folks will take everything out of the car, put it in the Shred It truck, and you can drive away.
Nice. So again, will they receive an invite in the mail or an email?
Both. You should get an email, yes, just like today's event. You should get something in the mail and an email.
Okay, perfect. Well, that sounds great. May 10th. Put it on your calendar so that you have that for sure.
At noon.
And then you have another event which also kind of fits in now that I think about it, because when you go through the parade of homes, everything was just neat as a pin. Things are all neat and tidy, which is what we're wanting Karen to help us with, right? So let's talk a little bit about once again, this is the second year in a row that you're going to be in the parade of homes.
Yes, we're very excited about this. So if you'd like to see a villa at Lakeview Village, again, you'll receive an invitation. The Parade of Homes starts April 23rd.
April 23rd to May 8th.
So it goes 3 full weekends, then also is open throughout the week. So we'll have a furnished villa for you to come view. Some people, they're afraid to come visit because they feel like they're going to be sold. I'm not ready to talk to anybody. I'm not ready to make a decision. So coming to Parade of Homes is a great way to see our community, see a villa, not feel like you have to make decisions. But for future reference, you never have to feel that way to come to Lakeview Village. We're happy to show you around. We visit with people for years and years, educate them before they make their decision. We would rather meet with people who decide we're not the right fit than to never have the opportunity to meet with them and let them know their options. But the Parade of Homes is a nice way to see the community and see one of our brand new homes.
Yeah, that would be really fun. And then drive around the campus. I mean, springtime is so beautiful anyway, but your campus, what is it, 100 acres?
It's 100 acres.
I remember that because of Winnie the Pooh. The 100-acre wood. But yeah, it's beautiful. And then they can kind of take it all in and see everything and how it all works. I mean, I just think it would be a lovely way to do it. And you're right. Nobody's going to be standing at the door trying to sell them. They'll let them just come through and take a look, which is really, really cool.
Right.
So if there should be any other questions that would come up from today's presentations or questions about Lakeview Village or Parade of Homes or Shred It or whatever, Lynn is your go-to person. So again, we've got Lynn's information here on the screen so that you can take a look at that and take down her email, phone number, give her a call or send her an email, and she will be more than happy to help you all figure all of that out. Is there anything else that you all wanted to share before we wrap things up today?
No, I think we covered it all.
I kind of feel like we did too. It was really, really good. It's always great to sit down with you, Karen, and remind us that yes, this is a good thing for us to do, to start moving those things out of our home, because it really does free us up to be able to live more life than it does, you know, feeling like, oh my gosh, every drawer is full and every box is there, and it's a good feeling for sure. All right, well, that's it for today. Thank you all so much for being with us. Look for those mailers and those emails that Lynn was talking about, and just go get a box and clean it out today. You're going to feel so much better. I'll do it when I get home, I promise. Have a great day, everybody.